Hello, thanks for joining me. So, within this practical demonstration, we're going to recap your LV02 Task3 task. Now, if you remember back, this was air supply and exhaust. So if we look at the e-portfolio reference of LV02s Task3, it is air supply and exhaust. So this is a two-part task. And as with any practical task that we do in the workshop, the first thing we would always do is start by risk assessing our area. So normally in our workshop, we would complete our 5 watts board, but as you can see, this is blank. And that's because we're going to talk through together how we would complete a risk assessment during this practical. So we're going to do that as we go through the practical. Okay, so the first thing I will always do, and so do you in the workshop, is we start with our PPE. So we use the relevant PPE as per this practical task. So for this particular practical task, we are going to wear our steel toe cap boots, we're going to wear our overalls, gloves if necessary, we're going to always wear our goggles, okay, we're going to wear barrier cream, which I've already put on, and of course, we always make sure we've got our ID badge on for safeguarding purposes. Okay, so let's have a little look at the task. So if you want to make your way over to the practical task sheet. So this is how the practical task sheet looks like on ePortfolio. So we'll always start off by our vehicle information. So we need our reg number, we need approximate year, we need our make, model and VIN number. So it's very important that we use the vehicle that you did this task on. Okay, so whatever task that you did this on, we'll make sure that we've got our vehicle information, and all that vehicle information is available on our team site to pick up off the spreadsheet that's on there for you. Okay, so let's have a look at the two-part task that we've got to complete. So the first part of the customer request is to remove and refit an exhaust manifold or section. Now on this particular vehicle, I've opted to complete the exhaust manifold. Okay, so we're going to make our way over to the car now and have a look. So there's one thing I've forgotten to do at this point, and that's to make sure I've got the relevant PPE on. So safety glasses on. Okay, so as I make my way over to the vehicle, what you'll find is, to make this video quicker, I've already undone some of the bolts to get this vehicle ready to be worked on. Okay, so first thing I need to do is locate the exhaust manifold on the car. So on this particular car, it's nice and easy. It's at the front and it's at the top. Don't we wish all cars were like that? Okay, so this particular vehicle, I've got a series of bolts with nuts on. So I'm going to start by undoing all of my nuts. So to do this task, I would normally use a ratchet, and this particular nut size is a 14mm, which is typical Japanese vehicle. Okay, so using my 3/8 drive ratchet. Okay, so again, 3/8 drive ratchet, that's a tool that we can list on our tool list. 3/8 drive ratchet with a 3/8 drive 14mm socket, and then you'll notice that I'm actually using the deep socket there because I'm going over a stud. Okay, so using that, I've then slackened off my manifold nuts. Now I'm going to get these off as quick as I can. And like I said, we have already undone some of these to make this video quicker. Okay, so with all my manifold nuts off, it's very important to keep them safe. Okay, so I'm going to put them on my table. After I've done all my manifold nuts, there's nothing stopping that coming off. Okay, so prior to recording this video, I've undone the 3 bolts that were underneath the manifold section connecting to the exhaust downpipe, so that's off, ready to go. And the only thing I had to do was disconnect my lambda sensor. Okay, so with the lambda sensor disconnected, I can now remove my exhaust manifold. So being careful not to catch anything on the way out. There's my manifold. So with my manifold off, I'm going to carry out a visual inspection. So I'm going to be looking for any signs of split manifolds, any cracks, any signs of exhaust blowing. So maybe sort of the sooty looking marks around there. So I'm actually quite happy with that. So with that off, okay, I'm now going to move over to my exhaust gasket. Now I'm going to repeat that process with this. So I'm going to look and I'm going to check and make sure I've got no damage to the gasket or any rips, tears. Sometimes these aren't metal. These could be like a cork type, or there could be many different variations of that. So after checking that, we would then possibly clean up the face of our cylinder head, ready for a replacement gasket and the manifold to go back on. So we use the term refit in reverse order, but however, that's not always the case. So for me to refit this in reverse order, there's certain things I would have to do differently, putting it back together than taking it apart. Okay, and one of them things is I would have to torque up my manifold bolts. Okay, so I undid it using a ratchet, I would have to torque them up, putting it back on. So I would actually use a torque wrench. So on this particular vehicle, for our technical information, we're going to torque up our exhaust manifold bolts up at 55 Newton meters. Okay, so that would be a repeat process putting it back together. Okay, so quickly back to the board. The second part of this task is to remove and refit an air filter housing. Okay, so we're now going to move back over to the vehicle and look at that. So look at that, fantastic, right at the top, nice and easy, just as we like it. Okay, like I said, don't we wish all cars were like that? So to get this airbox off in particularly, I'm going to have to undo a pipe at the back, which was a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm then going to disconnect my pipe. I'm going to undo the 2 spring clips at the back and remove my exhaust, my air filter housing top. Okay, once that's removed, again I'm going to put it somewhere safe. I can then remove the air filter. And once we've removed that, we're always going to carry out a visual inspection to see the condition of it. Now, as you can see with this particular air filter, it's very dirty, and if we're in the trade now, we would definitely look at replacing that or advising the customer to replace that. Okay, so there's our air filter. Okay, so with that off, the last part of the task is to remove the physical air box. Okay, so prior to this video, I've already undone the bolts. So on this particular task, there was 3 10mm long bolts, which I'm going to quickly remove. Okay, which allows me then to remove my airbox. Now you'll notice inside there we've got some debris, we've got some leaves. Okay, so that actually shows me that our air filter's doing its job, because it's in the box, it's not in the engine. Okay, so in the trade we would always clean that out, so we'd potentially brush it out, we use an airline, whatever necessary to do that. Always be careful that we haven't got any dead wasps in there, or even any wasps that aren't quite dead at this point, and they might be quite angry by the point that you're taking the air filter off. Okay, so always make sure that we're putting that into special precautions, okay, because this is what happens in the real world. Okay, so once we've emptied all our dirty debris out and we're happy, the one thing we've got to mention in our job card is that we've inspected our plenum chamber, which is inside our airbox. Okay, so again, once that's complete, we would then refit it all to the vehicle, and finally we would test that vehicle, wouldn't we? Okay, and make sure we've got no exhaust leaks and we've got no air leaks coming from our airbox. Once that's complete, we can then move back to our job card. We can carry out a brief description of the work that we've carried out. Now, literally, what I've said in this video is exactly what we want to see on our job card. Okay, we've covered everything necessary. Okay, and if we scroll down our job card, also very, very important, we get our PPE listing and the special precautions taken. And we've talked about that all the way through this video, what special precautions we've taken. Okay, we need to add our bolt torque figures, which on this particular task is manifold at 55 Newton meters. Okay, special tools used, including any calibration required, would be a torque wrench. And before I use my torque wrench to tighten up my manifold bolts, I would always make sure I checked it was calibrated first. Now, how would we do that? We potentially, on our torque wrenches, we would check the sticker on them, wouldn't we? Okay, further faults found. We would always find further faults with these vehicles, potentially ripped gaskets on manifolds, any cracks maybe in the air filter housing, missing bolts even. Okay, so there's always something there that you can list in our further faults found. And of course, once all that's completed, and only when it's completed, we then submit this to your assessor that you did that task with. Okay, I do hope that's been a whistle-stop tour into what we did in the practical task to jog your memory. Thank you very much.